Hi guys, welcome back to Harvest Moon Farm. Today I'm going to be making a couple of different things. My sisters are coming over tomorrow. We're going to make some lunch. So I am going to make ahead of time. I'm making our dessert and our bread. Our dessert is going to be a pecan caramel rum cake. So I'm going to make that today so it'll be ready for tomorrow. And I'm also going to make some sourdough bread. So we're going to start with the cake. And we need to preheat our oven to 350. And then we want to, I guess this mixer will work better if I plug it in. So I've got two round cake pans here. I'm going to spray them. And then I've got some parchment paper cut in little circles to fit the inside of this pan. And I'm going to set that in there. And then I'm just going to set these to the side while I start working on the cake mix. Okay, so we need, this entire recipe is written in grams. So I've kind of measured. I've used my kitchen scale to measure. So we need 2 sticks of butter. And this has been sitting out for a little bit so that it's softened and easy to work with. And then we need 200 grams of dark brown sugar, and I just have regular brown sugar, and I'm just going to add some molasses. I have this measured out already. So I'm just going to mix this in until it's kind of mixed in, because we're going to blend it up anyway, so it doesn't have to be mixed in super well. So you can add as much molasses as you want to make your sugar however dark you want it. So this is about the right color for dark brown sugar. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. And then I need another, oh goodness, my hair, another 60 grams of light brown sugar. So I'm going to zero out my scale. There we go. I can get my container open. Oh my goodness. Wow. Alright, so we need another 60 grams of just light brown sugar. So I'm just going to measure this out in here until I get to about 60. And that's a little bit over, but it's close enough. Alright, so I'm going to put this in. All that sugar in there. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to cream the butter, the 2 different brown sugars, and we want to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla to that. So put my vanilla in. And then we're just going to cream that up in our mixer here until it's well blended. All right, so we're going to add 6 eggs, one at a time. Oh, this egg is, I don't know if you can see that. It's got some weird little growth here on the outside of the shell. But we're going to go ahead and add these one at a time and then mix it well after each one. And these eggs are fresh. I just gathered them actually yesterday. So here's our last egg. All right, got that all mixed up. So now we're going to mix our dry ingredients in a separate bowl. So we need 335 grams of self-rising flour. Oops. And then we need 225 grams of almond meal. Yep, 225. So I'm just zeroing out my scale after each addition so that I can measure this out. All right, perfect. And then we need a teaspoon of cinnamon. So I'm just mixing all those dry ingredients together in this bowl so that they're mixed up well. So I need 125 milliliters of milk. So let's see. There we go. And 60 milliliters of dark rum. So I've got this spiced rum, that's what I'm going to use. And I need 60 milliliters. And I can barely see this. Let's see here. All right, there we go. There's 60. That smells really good. Okay. Now, we are going to alternate adding the dry ingredients and the milk and rum into our butter and sugar mixture. So we're going to start with the flour. I'm just going to put about a cup in there. And then I'm going to mix that up. Pour a little of this milk in here. Add another cup or so of flour. And we're going to mix that in. Okay, so I forgot I should have started this. So because we're going to layer this cake, we want to make sure that it bakes flat so we don't have a domed cake, because it's harder to stack them that way, and I don't like to cut them because then you've got open cake. Anyway, so I've got these cake strips. These are Wilton Bake Even strips. Put this here. And so we need to get these wet and let them kind of soak in cold water for about 5 minutes. All right, so I've got those strips in a bowl of cold water. So I'm going to go back to adding, and I don't remember what I just added. I think milk, I don't know. Well, I don't know where I was at, so I'm going to add milk. This is mixing up really nicely. So I'm going to do about half of the flour that's left, which maybe is about a cup. All right, so we just have this last little bit of flour left. I'll put that in there. Yep. And then we're going to mix that up really well. Okay, so that's all mixed up now. Just need to wait a few minutes for those cake strips to be sitting in the water long enough, and then we're going to wrap them around the base of our pans, and that will help our cakes. When they bake, they'll have a flat top instead of a rounded top, because what we're going to do is torte those, and then we'll have basically 4 cakes stacked together. Got a few more minutes to wait on the cake strips, and then we'll get the batter in the pans and get them in the oven. So there were quite a few eggs out there. Today is October 28th. And last year, by the first part of October, our chickens had basically stopped laying. We might get an egg here and there. All of a sudden, our chickens are laying like crazy. I don't know what's going on, but we'll take it. All right, so I've washed my hands, and oh my goodness. It's been 5 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and get those cake strips out and put them on our pans. I'm dripping water everywhere, and the dog thinks it's hilarious. He's licking the water off the floor like he's never had water in his life. What a ding dong. All right, now that I've managed to get water on absolutely everything, I've got our cake pans ready. Oh my goodness. Need to tighten this one up a little bit. These things are kind of difficult to use. They get wet and they're hard to maneuver. All right, I think what I'm going to do is set my cake pans on a cookie tray so that I don't have to mess with these strips. That way I don't have to worry about them falling off when I'm trying to maneuver the cake. And they're probably supposed to be tighter, but we'll see what happens. I've never used these before, obviously. Okay, so we just are going to get this junk out of our way. And I'm going to divide this batter. Whoops. All right, I'm going to divide our batter up between these 2 pans. I wouldn't normally be so precise about how I try to measure these out, but because of the way this cake is going to be, I want to make sure that they're pretty even. All right, so I'm just going to spread this batter out in the cake pan. So these cakes are going to go into the oven for 30 minutes or until a toothpick comes out clean. clean up a little bit of this mess now. Whoops. So after the cake is baked and cooled, we're going to divide them this way so that we can end up with four cakes stacked up. And then we are going to put cream cheese frosting between the layers and on the very top. And then in addition, on the top, we're going to put some caramel sauce and some toasted pecans. So when those cakes come out, we can toast up our pecans and have that ready for when the rest of the cake is ready. So while that's cooking, we're gonna go ahead and get our bread started. Okay, so we need, actually I need to go down and get some more flour because my regular flour, I'm out of my regular flour. Okay, so that turned out to be a bigger ordeal than I expected it to be. I was out of flour, of all-purpose flour in my kitchen container, and I have a 5-gallon bucket downstairs in my long-term storage, but it was empty, which is fine. I had more, but I had forgotten that it was in a 50-pound bag, which of course I couldn't lift. So I had to cut it open, scoop it out into the bucket until I got it where I could manage it so that I could finish dumping it into the buckets. So anyway, got my flour and I can start with my bread now, finally. Okay, so we want to put 2.5 cups of flour. Okay, so we want to add 1 packet of active dried yeast. I have mine in just a bigger container here. So the equivalent is 2¼ teaspoons out of this is what makes the same amount as our packet. So there's that. Stir this up. And we want 1½ cups of water, pretty warm. And then we're going to add 3 tablespoons of sugar and 3 tablespoons of butter. Whoops. All right, so we want to put our water in here. Whoa. I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of butter. Three tablespoons of sugar and a teaspoon of salt. So a teaspoon of salt, so we're gonna get that. 3 tablespoons of sugar. Oh, which I just added to the wrong place. Shoot. So your salt and sugar actually goes in your water mixture, and I just put it in my dry mixture by accident. So I'm going to try and get some of it out. It's all going to get mixed together eventually, so I think it'll be okay. But this is what happens when you don't read the instructions very well. All right, so we're going to mix this around. We want our butter to kind of melt a little bit. So the butter's kind of melting. We want it to melt probably just a little bit more. Whoops, I don't want to spill it. I need it to melt just a little more. All right, so now we're going to add this water, butter, sugar, salt mixture to our flour and yeast. Just going to stir that in a little bit, and then we are going to add our sourdough starter and mix it with a hand mixer. Okay, I have my mixer, but my husband put the dishes away, which I appreciate, but now I'm not sure where my beaters are, so I have to look for those. Found them. He doesn't do the cooking, so he doesn't really know always where everything goes. And that's fine. I appreciate him doing the dishes, even if I have to hunt for things afterwards. Okay, so we want to add a cup of sourdough starter. So the recipe isn't really clear on whether or not this should be an active starter. Mine is. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure out a cup of that. And put this in the flour water mixture. All right, so we're gonna mix this with our hand mixer. Woo! Okay, so that looks mixed really well. It's dripping everywhere. Okay, so we need another 2.5 cups of flour. We want to add to that a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. So I'm going to get that. So I've got a quarter here, so I'll do 2 of those. So there's our baking soda, and I'm going to, if I can find my spoon, I'm going to do this first cup. Mix that in. So we want to stir in as much of this remaining flour as we can get. All right, our cakes are done. So I'm going to take those out of the oven and let those start to cool. Okay, I think I'm going to use this instead of a spatula to try and mix the rest of this flour in. All right, so that was 1 cup. And we wanted 2.5, yes, 2.5. So this dough whisk is really helpful. It really gets in there and kind of helps you stir that without making a huge mess. All right, so once I get this mixed in here, I'm gonna pour this out on the countertop, and I'm gonna add a little bit, whoa! As I throw it everywhere, I'm going to add a little bit more flour and try and knead in that other 1/2 cup of flour that is in the recipe. And we will see how much we get in there. I have so many dishes out now. Let me get some of these out of the way. Now I can actually have a little bit of workspace on my counter. So we want to knead this about 6 to 8 minutes until the dough is moderately stiff. I want to try and knead in some more of this 1/2 cup of flour. And then once we get this flour in, we're going to shape it into a ball, put it in a bowl, and cover it and let it rise for about an hour. Okay, that is all kneaded in now. So I'm going to get my bowl. I'm going to get one of those bowls that I was already using. I'm going to spray the bowl with a little bit of vegetable spray, because that's what I have. Set this in here, and then I'm going to spray the top of this just a little bit so that it doesn't dry out as it's rising. And then we are going to set this over here on the stove and let it rise for an hour. All right, so it's been just about an hour and our dough has risen considerably, which is of course what we want. So now we're going to punch this down, turn it out onto a floured surface, and we're going to divide it in half. And then we're going to let it rest for 10 minutes. So while that is resting, I'm going to start the cream cheese frosting for our cake. So I had to wash my bowl out a little bit from when we made the cake. Still had some cake mix in it. Alright. So we need, I think I buried my, okay, here we go. We need 500 grams of cream cheese, which is essentially 2 bricks. And I would have made the frosting while the bread was rising, but I had to go buy more cream cheese because I only had 1 and I needed 2. And we're going to add 1 stick of butter, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and then some rum and our powdered sugar. Put all this in here. Get that in there, all right. So 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And a teaspoon of our rum. So now we are going to add 2 cups, right? 2 cups of powdered sugar. Alright, let's see how this looks. Looks amazing. Alright, we'll leave that there. Get this out of our way. I need to cut my cakes this way. I have one of those cake slicer things, I don't know what it's called. One of those things that's supposed to cut the cake. But I have absolutely no idea where it's at. So I'm going to do this with a knife and we'll see how straight it is. Probably won't be very straight. Alright, so I'm going to put this together on my cake plate. Get that off. And I'm going to put, I think, a little piece of parchment paper on the bottom. Alright, so I've got this not very perfect parchment paper circle. I'm going to lay that on there. And I'm going to put, let's see, my cakes are not perfectly flat. but I think this one might be the flatter one, so I'm going to start with this one. And then I'm going to use my bread knife to cut this, and we'll see how even it is. I don't think it's going to be perfect. Well, I know it's not going to be perfect. Who am I kidding? All right, let me try it like this. Oh my goodness. Oops. Okay, yeah, that's not straight, but it's okay. It'll still taste delicious, and I'm not trying to win any contest here. I would like it to be a little straighter, but it is what it is. Alrighty. So what time is it? Actually, let's take care of our bread first because it's been 10 minutes. Slide that over. Okay, so I'm gonna put parchment paper in my baking pans. So I have this dish. I'm going to take this first ball of dough, and I'm just going to pull this like this so that I'm creating tension on the top. And then I'm going to put this in my pan. I also have my Dutch oven for my other loaf. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here. I'm going to put this down and just stretch this so that, again, I'm creating tension on the top of this ball of dough. And pulling it in. I'm going to set that inside this Dutch oven, and then I've got my little bread cutter. I don't know what this is called. I don't know how to pronounce it. Actually, need a little bit of flour. So I'm going to dust the top of this with a little bit of flour. And I'm going to use my little knife here to just cut a design in here. All right, so here we've got the first one, and I don't know if you can see that, the second loaf here. And let's see, we're going to cover again and let it sit until it doubles in size for one final rise here. So I'm going to set these back over here on the stove. And then I'll go to work again on our cake. We're going to do a little taste of the frosting. Ooh, that's yummy. All right. Oh, my poor crooked cake. Oh well, that's okay. So I've got my offset spatula here. Let's see. So I want to use about a quarter of this. Ooh. spread that around. Okay, so there's that layer. So I'm going to put this layer on. I'm going to try and set it so the thicker part of this layer is on the thinner part of that layer, so hopefully it's more straight. We'll see. Okay, now let me try this other piece. See what I can do with it. Maybe I can get it a little straighter. Okay, I think this piece actually is a little more even, and I'm going to flip this way so that it's easier to put that frosting on. So you can see that it's not really flat like it's supposed to be, but that's okay. It'll be delicious regardless of how level or not level the layers of cake are. It already looks delicious. It smells delicious. All right, there we go. So now I'm going to put this last layer on. See how, well, it's not bad. So we're going to spread this frosting around on this top layer. Okay, so we've got our frosting on that top layer, and I'm going to go ahead and toast some pecans now to go on top of that. All right, the recipe calls for 1 cup of toasted pecans. So I'm going to measure a cup out onto my cookie sheet and get those in the oven. All right, so I'm going to put these in the oven and I'm going to check them in a few minutes because we don't want them to burn, we just want them to toast a little bit. Okay, so while the pecans are in the oven and we're waiting on the bread to do its final rise, I'm going to go ahead and clean up the kitchen a little bit because I've used just about every dish in my house. So I'm going to clean some of this up so I don't have quite such a mess. Timer's about to go off on the pecans, so I'm going to check on those. So I checked on the pecans and I decided I put them back in for 2 more minutes and we'll see how they look after that. Okay, I think these are perfect now. They're nice and brown but not burned. So I'm going to let these cool, and then I'll probably, I'm going to let these cool, and then I think I might break them up a little bit before I put them on the cake. I'm gonna put my sourdough starter back in the fridge until I'm ready to use it again. Oh my step off my refrigerator. I have potato starch and flour and powdered sugar. Holy cow. I'll go ahead and break these pecan pieces up a little bit. And then, I don't think I'm going to put them on the cake until tomorrow. So tonight, once the top to my cake plate is completely dry, I'll go ahead and put it on the cake. I'm going to put these pecans in a baggie or a bowl, something. And then tomorrow, before everybody gets here to start our lunch, then I'll go ahead and put the nuts and the caramel sauce on top of the cake because I don't want it to get soggy with the caramel. Ooh, these smell really good, breaking into them. Mmm, yummy. I love pecans. Okay. So the bread is almost doubled in size, so it's about ready to go in the oven. I'm gonna get these in a baggie. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put our bread in the oven. We're gonna bake it for about 30 to 35 minutes, and then I'll check it probably after 30 and see how it's looking. And if we need that extra 5, then I'll go ahead and leave it in the extra 5. All right, so my cake plate top is dry. I'm gonna go ahead and put it over my cake. Ooh, I might not have it. Ooh, barely fits. Actually, pull it over just a hair. There we go. Okay, so we're gonna let that bread cook and we'll take a look at it here in about half an hour. So it is the next day. My sisters are coming today to do our dinner, our lunch. And so I'm gonna go ahead and finish up the cake. I've got our pecans that we toasted last night. So I'm going to sprinkle those over the top of the cake. And I think, I'm trying to decide about the caramel. I think I'm going to go ahead and wait on the caramel because I don't want the cake to get soggy from the caramel. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll put that on right before we serve it so it'll be fresh. But I also wanted to show our bread that we made last night. It turned out beautifully. Smells amazing. The cake is beautiful. I cannot wait to get started on our meal today. So that's going to do it for today's video. So thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe as well if you're not already a subscriber. And on the next video, we're going to make the meal with my sisters and enjoy all of this food. Thanks, guys.